My name is Mason Hart. I'm a school teacher, or I was. By the time anyone reads this, if anyone does, my name won't matter. Nothing will. Because we counted down the last days of the world, and we did it with our eyes open. There was no alien invasion, no zombie virus, just a rock, a big one, a bullet from space we couldn't dodge. It started with a news article, something I would have scrolled right past if not for the words near-Earth object and NASA press conference. It sounded important, but they always sounded important. Clickbait dressed up in scientific jargon. That was 3 weeks before the impact. They called it IC-107N, and in the early press releases they said it would miss us. They were wrong. The first time I heard the name, I was half listening to the radio while grading papers. The host chuckled and called it just another rock buzzing the tower like it was a near-miss fighter jet. NASA was calm, as they always are. Assurances, percentages, low probability of impact. I remember them saying 0.0014%. That number stuck with me for some reason. But something was different this time. I could hear it in the voice of the NASA administrator who gave the update. It wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. He paused before answering questions. He corrected himself halfway through a sentence, like he wasn't reading from a pre-written statement. 2 days later, they changed the odds to 2%, then 15%. By the end of the week, it was 74%. I stopped going to work. Everyone did. You can tell a lot about a society by how it handles the end. America went first. Not in impact, but in unraveling. Conspiracy theories bloomed like mold. The meteor wasn't real, some said. It was a Chinese weapon, a government excuse to lock us down. Others thought it was divine judgment, a cosmic correction for our sins. Churches overflowed. So did gun stores. Then came the rationing. Gasoline prices spiked, then vanished entirely. The shelves were picked clean in 72 hours. No one delivered anymore. I saw a man shot in the parking lot of a grocery store over a gallon of water. A woman was dragged out of a pharmacy by her hair while clutching diapers. It all collapsed so fast. I stayed in my small house in northern Missouri. It was quiet enough here, quiet enough to think. I tried to keep some kind of routine. Wake up, boil water, check the shortwave radio, try to call my daughter, Rachel. She never picked up. She lived in Denver. She didn't have a car. The last thing I heard from her was a voicemail. Dad, I think I'm going to try to take a bus somewhere. Maybe west. I love you. I'll keep trying to call. That was 12 days ago. A special broadcast aired from the White House. The president, flanked by generals, tried to hold it together. His voice cracked when he said the meteor was estimated at 1.3 kilometers wide, a stony chondrite traveling at 19 kilometers per second. Not an extinction-level event, they said, but regionally catastrophic. A new phrase entered the world lexicon, impact corridor. Like 107N would enter Earth's atmosphere somewhere along a swath stretching from the eastern Pacific through North America and as far as the North Atlantic. No one knew exactly where, but the models had narrowed it to about 800 miles wide. People in Europe and Asia were told to brace for economic and agricultural disruptions. In the U.S., people were told, get underground if you can. That was when the real panic set in. Satellite images showed it. A tiny glint moving against the black. Then came the footage from amateur telescopes, a blurry, tumbling dot that grew a little every night. A few brave scientists tried to talk to the public honestly. One said the shock wave would flatten entire states if it hit land. Another predicted global food shortages from the dust cloud alone. One was fired mid-interview. The others vanished from broadcast entirely. The moon passed between us and IC 107N last week. That's when we saw the silhouette. It was bigger than expected. Irregular, jagged. The media tried to spin it. Atmospheric drag may alter its course. New trajectory models are being developed. We still don't have exact impact coordinates. They knew. We all did. My neighbors left. Some drove east, toward family. Some just drove. A few stayed behind. There's no traffic here anymore. Just quiet roads stretching into ash-gray skies. 3 days ago, the ISS gave their last public transmission. The astronauts were calm, resigned. "We can see it now," one said. "It's rotating slowly. You can see impact scars on it. This thing has hit other planets before." They cut the feed after that. NASA's Deep Space Network went dark 2 nights later. There were no more press conferences. Only sirens. I built what I could in the basement. Reinforced walls, filtered air, canned food, batteries, solar lamps. Won't save me if it hits nearby. But it might be enough if we're on the fringe of the blast zone. I've got a crank radio and emergency frequency receiver. I keep them both on. Sometimes I hear voices. Sometimes just static. One guy in Colorado calls himself Doc Harper. He's been giving survival tips and relaying what little news he gets. Says military convoys are heading into old missile silos and deep mining sites. Black Hawk helicopters over Utah. Civilian traffic being turned away from bunker zones. I tried to reach him once. Just static in return. Outside, the sky is strange, dusty. The stars don't shine quite right anymore. The clouds have gone pink and orange even at night. There's a smell in the air, like ozone and scorched metal. And I think we have less than 48 hours now. The birds are gone. My dog won't stop pacing. I don't know if I'll make it through, but I'll keep writing. I want someone, anyone, to know how it happened. Not with fire from heaven, but with warnings, with countdowns, with a world that saw it coming and couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. I woke to the sound of thunder, but the sky was clear. It wasn't a storm. It was sonic booms, one after the other, like artillery fire echoing through the hills. I climbed the stairs from my basement shelter and peeked through the boarded-up kitchen window. Streaks tore across the early morning sky, glowing faint orange against the pale dawn. Meteoroid fragments, burn-ins, maybe pieces of IC 107N breaking off early. Or maybe something worse. The news was gone. Official broadcasts had ceased 2 nights ago. Now it was just static on every major channel, television, internet, satellite. The only voices I heard anymore came through the old shortwave. I tuned the crank radio and caught the tail end of a broadcast from someone called Cooper, broadcasting from Kansas City. Martial law declared in 5 states. Repeat, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, now under direct military lockdown. FEMA camps overloaded, highways blocked, armed checkpoints along I-35, Reports of bombings near Denver. We don't know if it's coordinated or chaos. The transmission fuzzed out again. Static and wind. I tried Doc Harper. No response. Only silence. I took stock again. I had 6 gallons of water, 72 canned meals, iodine tablets, flashlights, batteries, a crank lamp, a solar USB bank, a shortwave radio, and 3 jerry cans of gasoline I'd siphoned from my neighbor's abandoned car. I hated doing it. But hate doesn't count when the world is ending. I kept a map taped to my wall. Denver was circled in red ink. My daughter, Rachel, was still out there. Somewhere. She'd left that voicemail nearly 2 weeks ago. Said she was heading west, maybe toward Salt Lake. Maybe even trying to reach the bunkers up north. No return call. No message since. I kept replaying that voicemail over and over. Her voice was shaky but strong. I had to believe she made it. That day, I walked into town for the last time. Most of it was abandoned. Storefront windows shattered, doors kicked in, shelves stripped bare. The gas station was gutted. The town library had been turned into a shelter briefly, but now it was burned out. Bullet holes in the walls, blood on the concrete outside. I heard movement in the hardware store and kept walking. No reason to find out who was there. I wasn't armed. Just a crowbar tucked under my coat. By the time I reached City Hall, I found something I hadn't seen in a while. A crowd. 15 or 20 people stood around a military-looking truck. National Guard, maybe. A man on a megaphone barked orders. He wore civilian clothes, but he was armed. So was everyone else in the truck. A woman cried, asking to be taken east. Anywhere, just not here, she begged. They ignored her. Then I saw what they were doing. Handing out old-style printed flyers. I got one. Federal advisory estimated impact. 36 hours. Take shelter. If possible, relocate east of Mississippi. Do not travel by air. Civilian flights have been grounded. Expected fallout, seismic shock, pressure wave, atmospheric ignition. Ash cloud, God be with us all. There was a map printed below it showing the estimated corridor. It was worse than before. It stretched from Baja, California, slicing straight through New Mexico, Colorado, the plains, and deep into the East Coast. The worst-case projections swallowed half the country. Missouri was right on the edge. That night I heard something that broke me. Doc Harper's voice, faint but there, came through the static. This is probably my last broadcast. They came through the valley yesterday. Tanks, trucks, no room for anyone. They shot at the last crowd that approached. We lost 10 people. His voice cracked. To whoever's out there, hold on. If you're far enough from the zone, if you're under concrete, you might live. Stay warm. Prepare for the cold. I think it's going to be real cold. It's in the clouds, the sky. It's thick like oil. A pause. Rachel, if you're still listening, I'm proud of you. My heart stopped. Rachel. He said her name. There was no way he knew she was mine. But what were the odds? My hands shook so hard I dropped the radio. I grabbed it again, held the mic, tried to respond. Doc Harper, this is Mason. Do you know Rachel? My daughter, Denver, please respond, please. Static. Nothing. I barely slept. When I did, I dreamed of fire. In the dream, the sky turned molten. Trees bent backward. People tried to scream but had no mouths. There was a roaring, so loud it drowned out the world. Then silence. Then snow. I started boarding the windows the next morning. I'd reinforced the basement walls with cinder blocks and steel plates I ripped from old fences, not perfect, but better than drywall. I dragged down every blanket I could find, extra water jugs, and my old mattress. I wrote letters, one for Rachel, one for anyone who might find this place after. I didn't believe in God, but I prayed anyway. The air grew still. Birds had vanished days ago. The wind didn't move the trees anymore. Even the insects were quiet. It felt like the world holding its breath. And the sky had turned black at noon. Darkness spread eastward, a curtain of ash and vapor from the meteor's entry burn. Scientists had warned about this. Pre-impact atmospheric effects, they called it. The heat of entry was enough to flash burn the upper atmosphere. Some believed the air itself might ignite. I couldn't stop watching the western horizon. Then, just as the radio crackled once more, I saw it. A flash. Not bright. Not yet. Just a tiny bead of fire descending toward the earth, a silent god of stone. It was here. It happened at 4:13 p.m. Central Time. The moment I had been preparing for, dreading, cursing, dreaming about. The moment humanity had spent months calculating, speculating over, screaming into microphones about, happened in less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds. That's all it took to split the world open. The flash came first. I was outside when it happened, standing on the roof of my house like an idiot, shielding my eyes with the welder's glass I'd taped into a cardboard box. Every part of me wanted to be below ground, but I had to see it. For her. For Rachel. A blinding streak carved the sky. A vertical sunrise. It started as a pinpoint and exploded outward. Pulsing orange, white, blue-hot, then ultraviolet until it disappeared behind the mountains. A ripple tore through the atmosphere like a tsunami in the clouds. The heat slapped my face and arms even from hundreds of miles away. I ducked just as a second flash followed. Then the shockwave hit. The sound was indescribable. Not like thunder, not like an explosion. It was pressure, a wave of sheer force that sucked the breath from my lungs and drove me back into the chimney like a rag doll. My ears popped and rang. A window below shattered. Power lines whipped through the air like snakes. And that was from here. God help the people near ground zero. I scrambled back down into the basement, half falling the whole way. The house was shaking. Dust poured from the ceiling. I heard things crashing upstairs, furniture toppling, dishes smashing, something heavy dragging across the roof. Then everything stopped. No more sound. No more light. Just silence. I stayed in the basement for hours, maybe longer. Time didn't mean anything. My ears rang constantly. My watch had frozen. The air felt heavy, almost thick, like trying to breathe through a soaked blanket. I turned on the crank lamp and scanned for damage. Cracks in the foundation. One of the support beams had split, but the rest held. I drank water, ate a cold can of beans, threw it up 5 minutes later. Then I heard the sound, a low groaning, like the earth itself was shifting. It built slowly until the ground trembled again. My fingers dug into the mattress as the foundation creaked. I heard a car alarm blare somewhere, then cut out. Earthquake. Not huge, but big enough. It made sense. An object that size slamming into the crust. Every tectonic plate on this side of the world probably jolted like a pinball table. The worst was the dark. It wasn't just night outside. It was blackness. I opened the basement hatch and poked my head out just long enough to confirm it. Total blackout. No stars, no moon. Just oily, falling ash like dead snow drifting through the sky. Acrid, hot, chemical. I closed the hatch and sealed the cloth strips I'd taped around the seams. I didn't want to risk breathing that in. The radio came back. Not a broadcast. Just a voice, faint, desperate. Hello? Anyone out there? This is Station Echo 22 broadcasting from eastern Utah. Salt Lake City is gone. Repeat, Salt Lake is gone. Impact struck Nevada desert, confirmed. Thermal bloom took out everything west of Provo. Ash cloud moving east at 60 knots. Repeat, 60 knots. You have to take shelter now. Do not go outside. Visibility 0. Roof collapses widespread. Dust inhalation fatal without filtration. The voice cut out. My chest tightened. If the meteor hit Nevada, that meant Rachel, if she made it, would have been right there. That night I tried calling her again. The signal didn't even attempt to connect. Just a dead tone. I lay there in the dark with the radio on low, curled under 2 blankets, shaking from cold and fear, trying not to picture her silhouette turning to ash. Trying not to picture everyone's. The next day, or what I assumed was the next day, I emerged. It was like walking into the end of the world. My town, the one I grew up in, the one I thought would always be the same, was gone. Trees were flattened. Windows were blown out. Smoke curled from a dozen small fires. Ash covered everything like snowfall after a blizzard. I looked up. No sun. Just a gray ceiling of soot and static-charged clouds. I saw a body half buried in a collapsed shed, but I didn't check if they were alive. I couldn't. I couldn't handle one more. By noon, it started snowing. Not real snow, not water, not even ice. It was ash. Thick and fibrous and dark like burned paper. When I held my palm out, it stuck to my skin and burned a little, like insulation material. I wrapped a scarf around my face and kept moving. Every few feet, I marked a symbol on walls or telephone poles. It was something Rachel and I made up when she was little, 3 arrows pointing down like a crow's foot. Dad was here. I didn't know if she'd ever see them. But I had to believe someone would. I spent the night in the basement again. My lungs burned a little, but the filters I had made out of vacuum bags and surgical masks seemed to be holding. I took inventory. Supplies were fine for now. Water was lower than I liked, but melt traps I set on the gutters were helping. I heard gunshots that night, close. A car sped down the highway and then veered into the ditch. I stayed put. The next morning, or whatever passed for it now, I tried the radio again. This time, I caught something new. Not just survivors, a signal, a voice on loop. This is Emergency Broadcast Node Lima. If you can hear this transmission, you are within range of Shelter Complex 7. Proceed southeast of Colorado Springs. This is a Class 2 refuge site under Joint Command jurisdiction. Entry is restricted. All nonviolent civilians will be processed. Repeat, Shelter Complex 7, southeast of Colorado Springs. Shelter Complex 7. My hands shook. If I could get there. Maybe they had a registry. Maybe they had news. Maybe she was there. It was a long shot. But what else did I have? I packed a bag. 3 days of food. Water tabs, radio, my letters, the crowbar. I took one last look at my house, the cracked porch, the wind chime that never rang again, the marker Rachel and I carved into the tree out back that read R plus M for ever. Then I started walking east. The sky behind me was burning red. The first day on the road was worse than anything I imagined. I left my town behind at first light. Not that light meant much anymore. The sky was a dim, bruised gray at best. You could barely see 200 feet ahead through the thick veil of ash drifting in the air. Every breath was a risk. I tied 2 masts together and stuffed a strip of charcoal filter between them. It worked. Barely. The roads were littered with abandoned cars. Some were still running, headlights dimmed behind layers of soot. I passed a school bus folded against a guardrail, its windows shattered, and its seats empty. I didn't stop to look too closely. There were no birds, no wind, just the crunch of my boots over broken glass and cinders. I hadn't seen the sun since the day of impact. I followed Highway 40 east for a while, sticking close to the tree line when I could. Fires still burned in the hills, sometimes roaring back to life when gusts stirred the poisoned air. Everything smelled like melted plastic and scorched earth. At noon, I saw my first other survivor. He was standing in the middle of the road, waving his arms, thin, ragged, face streaked with ash and blood. I raised my crowbar instinctively. He screamed something about water. I tossed him a bottle from a distance, but didn't come closer. He was coughing hard, hacking something black into the road. When he tried to approach, I warned him off. "Please," he rasped. I kept walking. The old world was dead. Mercy had gone with it. That night I found shelter inside a collapsed rest stop. The roof had caved in, but one corner room remained intact. I lit a candle and unrolled my sleeping bag. The wind outside howled like a living thing. I read one of the letters Rachel had written me from college. "Dad, it's so weird here. Everyone drinks milk out of mason jars and wears socks with sandals. Anyway, I love you. I'm fine. Don't worry about me, okay? Keep feeding that weird cat that adopted you. She's probably the only one who listens to your AM radio station anymore." I smiled, then cried. Then I fell asleep with the letter pressed to my chest like armor. By day 3, the snow turned black. It wasn't fluffy anymore, just thick, sticky ash that clung to everything. Breathing became harder. I started coughing. I used a scarf soaked in alcohol, wrapped over my existing mask. Cities were completely unrecognizable. The first major town I passed through, Glenwood Springs, looked like a bombed-out war zone. Grocery stores had been emptied and then torched. I found a dead National Guardsman under a flipped Humvee, still gripping a radio with a melted faceplate. I took his sidearm. I wasn't planning to use it, but I knew better than to walk into the ashlands empty-handed. On the 5th day, I reached the outskirts of Colorado Springs, and I saw something that broke me. The mountains were gone. I don't mean obscured, I mean flattened. Whole ranges looked like they'd been sandblasted down to the bones. The forest had burned away, leaving skeletal trees like grasping fingers clawing toward the ashen sky. In the distance, I could make out rows of tents set up near an old ski lodge. Survivors, maybe, or refugees. I didn't stop. I had one goal, Shelter Complex 7. By nightfall, I reached a long chain-link fence topped with rusted barbed wire. Behind it, a half-collapsed concrete sign read, U.S. Bunker Compound SC. 7. I dropped to my knees. I had made it. There was a checkpoint up ahead, manned by 3 guards in tan uniforms, gas masks, and full tactical gear. One raised a rifle when he spotted me. I held my arms up. Non-violent, I wheezed. Civilian. Name's Mason Grant, from Utah. They kept their weapons drawn as they circled me. One checked my pack. Another took my radio. A third scanned me with some handheld radiation meter. Clear, she said. Follow us, the lead one ordered. Inside, it was like stepping into another planet. Concrete tunnels, sterile lights, the hum of machinery. I saw dozens of other survivors, some in shock, some sobbing, many silent. A nurse checked my vitals. Another handed me a rough jumpsuit and told me to shower and burn my old clothes. The water was cold, but it was clean. I cried for 10 straight minutes. Later that evening, a man in a black windbreaker with JC stitched into the chest found me in the mess hall. Name's Captain Brenner, he said. Join command. I nodded. Grant, Mason Grant. I was broadcasting up until the impact. I've been trying to find my daughter, Rachel Grant. She was with the team in eastern Nevada. She's a meteorology student, field placement. He didn't react. I know it's a long shot, but I heard you might have registries, survivor lists. Brenner gave me a look I couldn't read. There's a partial database, and we're uploading when we can, but communications are unreliable. Satellites are mostly useless now. You're welcome to check it. He hesitated. But be prepared for blanks. Most of the Western data centers were destroyed. I checked the registry that night. I searched for hours. Her name wasn't there. I kept looking anyway. The next 2 days blurred together. I helped clean dishes, sorted salvaged batteries, taped up cracked seams and water pipes. Nobody talked about the outside world much. It was too heavy. Some had seen the meteor from less than 20 miles away. Said it was like watching God throw a hammer through the desert. Others described a heat so intense it turned highways into rivers of tar. One woman said she watched her husband disintegrate while standing beside him. No one knew the true death toll. Maybe no one ever would. By the end of the week, a new announcement rang over the compound intercom. Temperatures are continuing to drop. Ash layer has thickened atmospheric coverage. Solar penetration is down to 8%. All hydroponic modules are to double crop yield cycles, effective immediately. External excursions limited to 5 minutes unless authorized. Repeat, temperatures are dropping. Later, someone told me the meteor had kicked so much dust into the stratosphere that global temperatures might plummet 20 degrees in the next month. Winter was already arriving in June. I wrote Rachel another letter that night. I didn't know if she'd ever read it. But I had to believe someone might. In the days that followed, I learned the new rules of the world. No one said it out loud, but the truth hung in the air like the ash outside. This wasn't temporary, not a storm we could wait out, not something we could fix. The meteor had changed everything. The scientists in the compound, what few of them remained, explained it like this. The impact had thrown millions of tons of dust, rock, and sulfur into the atmosphere. Sunlight was barely reaching the surface. Global photosynthesis had been choked at the root. Ocean currents were slowing. We were looking at a nuclear winter. A short one, they hoped. But short still meant months, maybe a year, maybe longer. I kept searching the survivor list every morning, hoping that Rachel's name would show up, hoping I hadn't made it all this way just to find her gone. I wrote her a new letter every night. They kept piling up in a weatherproof pouch I kept with me at all times. It helped me stay sane. It gave me purpose. The compound ran on a tight clock, lights on at 0600. They found her dangling over a ladder, her boots swaying in the recycled air. No note, no warning, just gone. Her name was Emily. I'd spoken to her the night before. She'd asked if I thought the skies would ever clear again. I'd told her the truth. I don't know. Maybe that was the wrong answer. 2 days later, we held a memorial. Captain Brenner gave a short speech. We all stood in silence. They didn't have a burial, no land for that. Instead, they cremated the body in a repurposed burn chamber. The ashes were placed in a small sealed jar. Someone etched her name into the lid with a knife. That was the new way of remembering. Clean, contained, unceremonious. It hit me harder than I thought it would. Sometimes at night, I climbed up the narrow service tunnel that led to the surface hatch. You could only open it for a few minutes before pressure alarms kicked in. But for that brief time, I'd sit just beneath it and listen. There was no wind anymore, just silence. Dead silence. The kind you feel in your teeth. It wasn't long before rumors started spreading. That another meteor was coming. That the impact had been part of something larger, a broken comet maybe, or a debris field that would hit Earth in waves. Some claimed to have seen it from space. Some claimed to have made contact with survivors in Russia, China, even South America. But the truth was, our comms were patchy. Most satellites were offline. What remained was old shortwave, crackly, unreliable, and full of static. Still, I kept trying. Every morning I turned the dials on the compound's emergency radio set, listening for anything, for anyone. One day I heard her voice. It was faint, distant, full of static. But I knew it was Rachel. "This is Rachel Grant. Field Outpost 17. We're alive. Eastern Nevada. Please, anyone. We need—" Then silence. I screamed for the comms officer. We tried to lock the frequency, tried to boost the signal, but it was gone. Just like that. Like a ghost in the wires. I didn't sleep that night. I sat staring at the blank transmission screen, thinking about that brief moment of connection. Thinking about my daughter out there, still breathing, still fighting. I wasn't letting her die out there. The next morning, I went to Captain Brenner. "I need a vehicle," I said. He didn't answer at first, just looked at me. "I heard her," I continued. "She's alive. Eastern Nevada. That's maybe 200 miles, max. I can make it in 3 days. 4 if the roads are bad." "You're not authorized," he said flatly. "I don't need authorization. I need wheels and a filter mask. Mason, you step out that door. We're not opening it again. We're barely maintaining conditions here. Every air cycle, every calorie matters. You know that. I won't take anything extra. I'll even leave my rations. Just give me the chance." He didn't respond. But I saw something flicker in his eyes. Pity. Or respect. Maybe both. 2 days later, they gave me the keys to an old electric utility truck. No one said anything. No announcements. No send-off. Just a nod from the gate guard as the outer hatch hissed open. The wind hit me like a freight train of soot and cold. I turned the truck east. I made it 20 miles before I had to stop and clear the filters. Another 15 before the ash clogged the windshield wipers. Another 10 before I had to swerve around a burned-out convoy of FEMA supply trucks. Their tires melted into the highway like wax. That night, I slept inside a collapsed visitor center. I lit a candle and wrote a new letter. Rachel, I'm coming. I know you're still out there. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I don't care what I have to go through. I'll find you, even if it's the last thing I do. I don't know if the road ahead leads to salvation or a grave. But I'm not turning back. Not now. The skies may be dark. The world may be broken. But there's still something left to fight for. And I'll keep walking until I find it.